Hey everybody, excited to paint this beautiful mountain landscape with you today. Just wanted to let you know we do recommend having a container of water and some paper towels on your workspace. Also going to want to cover your workspace with something, and we also recommend wearing a smock or art clothes. We are going to be using acrylic paint today. It can be difficult to remove from surfaces. All right, so onto your mixing tray, we are going to add white, phthalo red, and phthalo green. We're going to be working in the sky section of our painting first. So we are going to want to mix together white and phthalo red. We're going to try to create a pale pink color that's going to go along the horizon line above the mountain. All right, so we are laying this light pink color onto our canvas right along the edge of the top of the mountain. I'm using my large brush for this step. If it's more comfortable for you, you could always grab a smaller brush when you get really close to the mountain section. And also using horizontal brush strokes. So I'm moving my brush left to right on my canvas to create this sky section that is down close to the mountains. You can take the color that is on top of your canvas and wrap it around the sides. This is a step that I'm going to do for all my colors, and that way when we get to the end of the project, all the sides of the canvas will be painted as well. All right, moving on to the right side of the mountain. Just adding some pink into the sky here as well. This can be kind of loosey-goosey. There's going to be two large trees on this side of the canvas. You honestly won't really see this side of the sky as much. And I think I'm just going to bring the left side sky up a teeny bit more to kind of match that right side. Letting my brush run out of color as I move towards the top of the canvas. That way when I go back in and try to blend in the next color, I have a little bit of a soft edge there. The top of the sky is going to be a mix of white and phthalo green. We want to use mostly white and just add a little bit of phthalo green in there to get a nice soft sky color. And we're going to start at the top of the canvas and work down towards the pink section. So my sky color's just about done. I went ahead and wrapped it onto the edges of the canvas. And in between these two colors, we are going to want to add white. So once I'm done painting the top of the canvas, I'm going to make sure my brush is rinsed off. And I'm just going to take some white and blend it in towards the blue section on top and towards the pink section on the bottom. And I'm even going to overlap a little bit so that the colors really look like they're blending from one into the other. Sticking with those long horizontal brush strokes, side to side, left to right. And you can even go back and dip in and add a little more pink or a little more blue to help with the blending. So I'm feeling pretty good about my sky. I'm gonna give my brush a good rinse, and we're gonna move down into the mountain section. For the mountains, we're gonna need phthalo blue. We wanna make a wash with this color. So basically what we're making is sort of a watercolor using a whole nice big pile of water and just adding a little bit of blue into it. The reason we wanna keep this nice and wet is so that we are able to see the pattern lines in the mountain. So this is kind of a base color. We're gonna be going back in and adding color on top of this, but we do wanna have something in the background here. So go ahead and mix a whole bunch of water in, add a little bit of blue, and fill in the whole mountain section. Once your wash is done on your mountains, we're going to start to work on the right side of the pattern lines. So we're going to be mixing phthalo blue, which is the same color we just used for the wash. We're going to mix it with a little bit of white. And this is the color that we're going to use to start to fill in the mountain. So we're going to go along the pattern lines and we're going to be shading in a diagonal motion from the pattern lines from the left to the right. As you drag your brush down in that diagonal pattern, you want to just let the paint sort of dry as you drag. This is a dry brushing technique. So sort of have this concentrated amount of color towards the right side of the pattern. And then you're going to drag your brush and sort of just let the paint run out as you're dragging those lines down towards the base of the mountain. Don't forget, over here on the right side, also all the way to the left side, we're gonna have some trees in the foreground, some big pine trees. You're not really going to see this section much once those trees are painted, but we do want to have a nice dark base back there. So go ahead and drag that dark blue color that we're using on the right-hand side all the way into that space on the right. On the left side of each peak of the mountain, we're going to be adding some snow. I'm using my small square brush, and I'm just adding white in the same way that we added the dark blue in the last step. So I'm going along the pattern line, and then I'm dragging my white from the right to the left. So we're basically doing the same step we did in the last segment, but we're using white and we're moving in the opposite direction. Once you're done with your mountains, you can make sure that all of your brushes are nice and clean, and we're going to work down into the section below where there's sort of these trees in the background. So we need to mix together phthalo green and white. It's the same two colors we use for the top of the sky. And we're going to double load our brush, which means we're going to be loading white on half our brush and then this mix that we just made on the other half. We're going to hold our brush perpendicular to the canvas so that the narrow part of the brush is what we're using to paint. We're going to be making short, choppy brush strokes to fill in this section of trees that's sort of a little bit away in the distance. If the colors start to mix together too much, just give your brush a little rinse and wipe and reload your brush with the green and white. Just wrapping this color onto the two sides of the canvas that are in this section and giving my brushes a good rinse before we move on to the meadow. So the meadow is the next area below this section. And on our mixing tray, we're going to want to add yellow, phthalo green, and white. We're going to be transitioning from a sort of yellowy green towards the top down to phthalo green at the bottom. So we're going to start out by mixing together equal parts yellow, phthalo green, and white. This is what we're going to use for the uppermost portion of our meadow section. We're going to be adding more and more phthalo green as we move towards the bottom. at the very bottom of this section, we're going to be adding some phthalo green all by itself. So we want a really nice deep dark shade of green down there on the bottom. We're going to be doing some upward brush strokes. So all this means is that you're going to take your brush and you're going to start at the very bottom of your canvas and you're going to drag your brush upwards. What we're doing is creating a base or a background for the flowers that are going to be in this section at the end of the painting. All right, time to make some trees. We're going to be using phthalo green again, and we're just going to start out by drawing these lines for the tree trunk. I have my large brush, but I'm holding it perpendicular to my canvas in the same way we held the brush when we created the distant tree section. So I'm starting out by just making general shapes for the tree trunks. They don't have to be perfectly straight. In real life, trees can be all kinds of shapes. So don't worry if your lines aren't perfectly straight. Still using phthalo green, I'm gonna start to create the branches on my tree. The branches are gonna be smaller at the top and get larger as we move down. What we're doing in this step is creating a background for the branches. So don't worry if they're not perfect. In the next step, we'll be going in and highlighting the branches, which is going to give them more definition. But we need a nice dark color to work off of. So we're creating the deepest, darkest parts of the tree in this step. We're going to go around to each of the 3 trees and add branches. mixing together phthalo green and white, we're going to create a color for the highlight areas of our branches. So we're going to go back over all of the branches that we created in the last step, and we're going to give them a little more definition. We're also going to have the branches grow down in the front, all around. This is really going to give our trees a more lifelike look. I'm using my small square brush for this step. When you're happy with the look of your trees, go ahead and rinse all your brushes out. We're going to be creating a color for some foliage that's going to be down in the foreground of our grass area. So we're going to be using yellow, phthalo green, and white. Now there's no right or wrong place to put these leaves. Depending on where you put your stems and branches and leaves, you'll have different flowers growing. You want to have some taller, some shorter. The flowers that are going to be pink have a sort of wheat-shaped leaf top. So as you're creating your stems, grass, and leaves, you can create some that have this sort of starburst-looking pattern at the top, and these are going to become the pink flowers in the next step. Go ahead and add some ultramarine blue to your palette. We're going to be creating our purple flowers first, or our blue flowers. They're going to be a mix. They're mostly the blue with just a little white mixed in. And they're kind of a cone shape, these flowers. So towards the bottom of the flower, they're going to be a little bit wider. And then as we move up towards the top of the flower, they're going to narrow in a cone shape. To create the petals of the flower, I'm using my small square brush and I'm just dabbing the color on. I'm gonna add a blue flower anywhere I created a long stem. I'm using the same method as the first flower. I'm just dabbing the color on, using a wider petals at the base and more narrow petals at the top. Once all your blue flowers are on your canvas, I'm going to go back and highlight each flower petal with white. This is really easy. All you have to do is load your brush with white and just dab right on top of each petal that you created in the last step. Next, we're going to create the pink flowers. Each pink flower is going to have one brush stroke for each petal. We're going to be mixing together phthalo, red, and white. And we want to add the pink flowers anywhere that we created that sort of wheat pattern when we made our leaves and stems. In the far distance in the painting, in your meadow, you're welcome to add small pink and blue flowers to show that there's flowers growing in the distance. Using phthalo red by itself, we're going to go back and just deepen each pink flower petal. The easiest way to do this is just start from the outside of each flower petal and drag in towards the stem. The next few steps are optional, and they're just a way to add a little more dimension to your painting. I'm going to add some phthalo green into my meadow under the pine trees, just to give a little bit of shading and shadow in the meadow section, and also to add some details in that sort of background area of the meadow. For the last step, I'm gonna use my little square brush and go back into the mountain section to just highlight some of that white snow-capped mountains. Just adding it as close to that edge, that detail edge line as I can. So you don't wanna repaint the whole white section, but just add a little pop of white just to the areas that are closest to the ridge line. And again, we're sort of dragging that color down and blending it in. Thank you so much for painting with me today. It was so nice to have everybody. I hope you all had a great time relaxing and creating this mountain canvas. If you ever have any questions while you're painting your project, or you want to send us a cool pic when you're done, you can always reach us at claynationonline@gmail.com.